Michelle from Cozyegg and Ramsey's. This is episode 103, and today is Monday, March 15th, 2021. So this is a video primarily about cross stitch. I also talk about books and quilting and knitting and cats and other things. So if you are new here, welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back. I appreciate it. And yeah, so let's get to it. So Ramsey's apparently needs a lot of attention tonight, and I'm gonna try to avoid getting, a butt shot, but we'll see how it goes. So it's been a little more than a month since I recorded. Things have been rather eventful here. So I will just fill you in, shall I? So I think the last time I recorded was around the 11th of February. And so that weekend was Dark 13 stitching, and then Valentine's Day was on Sunday. And so on Valentine's Day, we got snow here in Texas, which is unusual for us. Every so often we will get snow. Normally it is not enough to really stick, and normally, the ground is so warm that when it hits, it just melts. So you see it, but nothing really accumulates. We tend to get ice a lot more than snow, but we got snow on Valentine's Day. It was beautiful. All things were fabulous. And then the weather continued to get worse, and the streets began to get icy. And so our carefully planned Valentine's dinner that we were ordering to have delivered couldn't be delivered because the roads were bad and restaurants were, shutting down because the roads were bad, etc. So no Valentine's Day dinner for us. But, things happen. So they had been talking about the possibility, since our temperatures were getting so cold, that we might have rolling blackouts throughout the next day, which is Monday. And we're no strangers to rolling blackouts. We have them every so often. Sometimes it's in the summer because it's so hot and everybody's trying to run their air conditioners. Sometimes it's in the winter. And they tell you that, your power will be off for like 20 to 30 minutes, and then it'll be on for a couple of hours. That is not the case. It may start out that way, but it quickly delves into where it's maybe on for 30 minutes and off for the next 2 or 3 hours. So, we both work from home. Of course, pandemic times, we were both at home anyway. And so, when they started the rolling blackouts, it actually started, kind of first thing in the morning. And I think the power went out sometime during the night, but it did come off and on, several times throughout the day. So I was able to work, Eric was able to work, not a big deal. But around 5 o'clock or so, the power came back on, and so we were sort of scrambling, like, let's quick make dinner, let's, do this, do that, whatever else we needed to do while the power was on. So we did that, and then about 6 o'clock, the power went off. And it never came back on. So, we didn't think too much of it Monday night, because we sort of figured it will eventually come back on, and the reports were that, they were having some issues, there were some outages, etc. And so it wasn't so much a rolling blackout anymore as an actual, power outage. So, we did our thing. We have, electric heat. We have electric everything. There's no gas to be found in our house. So, we sort of bundled ourselves into one room and, did what we were going to do that evening, and then went to bed. We put like 8 million blankets and quilts on top of ourselves, and we couldn't move because there was so much on top of us, but we were warm. And we just sort of figured the power will come back on during the night. It did not. And so Tuesday morning, I got up like normal, because I had a conference call kind of first thing in the morning. And it was, I think the temperature was 3 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which is quite unusual for Texas. And so it was maybe 50-ish, 47-ish degrees in my house, because of course the heat had been off since 6 p.m. So 12 hours. And the temperatures were continuing to drop. So, I got up, I did what I needed to do. Obviously I couldn't use my laptop because, it had lost power at some point during the night. So I was just sort of working off of my work cell phone, doing what I could do, checking email, taking calls, etc. Eric got up and, tried to do some research into what the heck is going on and when is our power coming back. And, the reports at that point were that they were estimating it would be back by 5 p.m. So we were like, okay, let's stick it out. Harder to do than it sounded, because, we were so cold at that point, and no fireplace, nothing, right? So we had food that we could make if we had a way to heat it up. We didn't really have anything other than like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that you could eat just as it was. But since the power was out, I really didn't want to have to go into the refrigerator because power was out. So, and we have a grill outside on the patio, which was kind of Eric's backup plan to, be able to heat things up if we needed to, boil water, etc. It was so cold that the hose to the propane tank froze. So, no grill. So, we did at one point, pop the thing on the garage door, started the car, sat in the car for a little bit, got warmed up, charged our phones, etc. But as the day went on, it was just getting colder and colder and colder in the house. And we had all of our faucets running because, you know, you're supposed to turn your faucets on and open your cabinet doors to keep your pipes from freezing. So we were doing that. But of course, with no heat in the house, I was thinking a lot of good this is going to do. So the temperature in the house, of course, kept going down, down, down. And as it got towards, 5 o'clock, when they were saying the power might have been back on, they moved it to 5 p.m. the next day. So, we kind of looked at our options, and, when you're in that situation, it's hard to know what the right option is. And from what we were looking at, no option seemed like a good option. They had set up warming facilities where you could go and be warm, but of course you had to bring your own food, and you could bring your pets, but they had to stay, contained, etc. And the roads were still super icy and, dangerous to drive on. So I'm like, I don't want to go that far because of the roads. And if we took the cats, they would be stuck in carriers, and, how are you going to manage that? That sort of thing. So but ultimately it got to the point where I was getting quite concerned about Eric because he was not doing well in the cold. And I was getting concerned about the cats as well. So we made a phone call, and his parents live maybe 15-20 minutes from us in normal conditions. And they had never lost power. They had power. So we asked if we could please, come over there and hang out until our power came back on. Because at that point we were concerned that, we didn't know how long it was going to be, because obviously this was an unforeseen outage. The power grid was way overloaded, and lots of people had no power, obviously, because they were setting up warming facilities. So we went to his parents' house. They graciously let us come over there and bring the cats, which I was glad about. But of course, it was just, the whole thing was a super stressful situation. And with both of the boys having just recently gone to the vet and, just sort of being barely over, all of that, I was just concerned what, if it was going to cause them to relapse, by being in a stressful situation in a weird house, etc. But they did fine. We did fine. So we went over there Tuesday evening, and we stayed until Friday afternoon. Our power did finally come back on, and we luckily had no burst pipes, no damage really, which I'm super, super grateful for. And I'm super grateful for my in-laws for taking us in. So we were able to work. I shared a photo on Instagram of my in-laws' wet bar, which was my office for the week. So I sat on a bar stool and just did my calls from there. But I was basically just working off of my cell phone, because when we left, I didn't even think to take a laptop. I basically took clothes, took the cats, and that was it. You always think about, well, what will you take with you if you have to, abandon your home? And nothing that I would have put on my list went with me because all I could think about was, we have to get out of this house and get warm. And I was worried about the drive, and the roads were very icy. You know, it was fine on the highway, but all of the neighborhood roads were extremely icy. So it took us a long time to get over there because we were trying to be very careful. So anyway, so it was just, I didn't even take any stitching with me, nothing. And, you know, it was just surreal. I hope that we never have to go through that again. We are now making plans for, you know, ways to get through that better, and be better prepared for it should it happen again, because I have a feeling it's going to happen again. So, but thankfully our power came back on. We did lose all the food in the refrigerator. When the power came back, we have, you know, cordless phones in the house, and those were fried. We had one of our battery backups fried, you know, but they were minor things compared to some of the damage that a lot of others had. So I'm quite thankful for that. And the boys did fine. So all good things. So that whole week, basically, I did no stitching. You know, Monday night I didn't have power. And then Tuesday through Thursday, I was at my in-laws with no stitching. And so it wasn't until, you know, that Friday night that I was able to stitch some. And let me tell you, it felt so good to like sit on the couch with my cat on my feet, my quilt over my lap, and my stitching in hand, watching TV. That was luxurious. So, yes, it was crazy. The week after that, Ramses did go in for his 3-week recheck after he had been at the vet. And I was a little concerned just because of all the stress and everything, but he checked out fine. They had no concerns. So we're just, you know, we've got both the boys on new prescription food now, and hopefully that will take care of it and we won't have any more issues, and they will both continue to be in good health. And, you know, hopefully that's all the excitement that we have for a little while. And of course now, you know, it's 80 something degrees outside, so I'm wearing short sleeves and, you know, I have bare feet. What can I say? That's Texas. So, that's really all the stuff that's been going on. So let's dive into what I've been working on. And I grabbed a bunch of stuff, and I think some of it I did not work on, but I grabbed it anyway, so we'll just go to it. So the last time we talked, I was working on Sarah, but I was getting ready to work on, it was almost the 13th, so I was getting ready to work on Blacked Sky for Dark 13 stitching. And if you're not familiar, Dark 13 stitching is something that Emily Eclectic Possessions and I host on the 13th of every month, which is basically an opportunity to stitch on your dark, creepy, spooky, gothic, you know, whatever pieces. And we use the hashtag Dark13 Stitching with the number 13 in there. And so feel free to check out that hashtag on Instagram. And yeah, it's fun. I love seeing what everybody works on. I try very hard to remember to post something on the 13th to remind people. And then in October, we do the whole month of October, which is dark October stitching. And I think we've been doing this 4 years, 5 years, something like that. It's been a while. So you can go and visit Emily at Eclectic Possessions on Instagram, and of course visit the hashtags. So for Dark 13 stitching for this year, what I have been focusing on is Blackened Sky by the Primitive Needle. And there it is. And this is a morning sampler, which I am absolutely in love with. It calls for pure palette silks, which this is my first time to ever try those, and mostly I like them. The only problem that I have run into with them, which I have talked about before, is that some of them I don't think, for example, this one, it looks, you know, fully saturated in the skein, but when you pull out one thread, there are white spots on it. So it's almost like where it was twisted, it didn't completely catch the dye. And in some cases that's okay because, you know, it just sort of works, but in other cases it's pretty pronounced. So, you know, but I only have a couple of them that have that issue. So I don't know if it's color specific or if it was just skein specific, but, and then it calls for 2 Silken Colors silks, which are some beautiful squishy silks, which I love. So I am stitching this on the called for fabric, which is 40 count Lakeside vintage pear with the called for silks. And so I'm just working on this every month until it's done, basically. So I got it out on the 13th of February, and I started this block. So the last block that I did was this one, and so this is the bottom. And so I started this block, and I worked on it for, I guess, 2 days, the 13th and the 14th, and then of course I had a week of no stitching. And so when I got home, I just picked this right back up and went back to it, and I basically stuck with it until I finished that block. So it probably took me a couple of weeks to finish that block. I was a little slow stitching because I was a little out of sorts after that, but I got that block done, and I really love it. I love the way it looks. And this block actually called for a new thread. I get very excited when I get to use a brand new thread on a piece, and so this was the last color that had not yet been used, which is this kind of orangey color called August Moon, and it's so pretty. I just love that Tombstone Angel. So, like I said, I stitched on this until I finished that block, and then set it aside, and I went back to Sarah, which I will show you here in a minute. And then for Dark 13 stitching this month, which was this past weekend, I got this back out, and instead of moving over to the last block, I decided I was going to work on the border at the bottom. So I did all of these diamonds. I can't quite get all the way over to the other edge, but that's okay. But I stitched as many of these diamonds as I could, and now I'm going back and filling in the black around them. That black color is called Cauldron. I love it. I love the way it looks. And so it has the same border at the top. There's no borders on the sides. And so this just goes all the way across. So I figured, you know, I'm just going to kind of work on it this week, see how far I can get, and then I will put it away. And then next dark 13 stitching, I'll get it back out. And I'd like to at least get to the halfway point, which I think is no problem. And then probably next month, I'll start that last block. So that would be good. So that's what I have been working on, and what I am going back to working on tonight. And the other thing that I have been working on, and I took her off the Q-snap. Now I have Tut here. Hello. Ramsey's left, and now I have Tut. He was napping on his pillow, but now he's up. So I took this off the Q-snap because I wanted to get a photo of it the other day, and so it's still out of the Q-snap. So I have been working on, really? Okay. I've been working on Sarah Ann Bantam. And Sarah is a antique sampler that I was given the opportunity to reproduce under Cozyegg Designs. And this is, it's an exclusive to the Tudor Rose Sampler Guild that was for our 20th anniversary, which was last year. But I will be making this available this December to the public. So here is a not great color printer photo of it. So here is Sarah. And this is a photo of the antique itself. And I did both a reproduction and an adaptation. And so the adaptation, I basically cut off this top piece with the verse and everything to make it just a little smaller, a little more manageable. And I replaced some of the specialty stitches with just cross stitch so that she was a little more approachable. So this is Sarah Ann Bantam, 1833, and I started her, she was my New Year's start, and obviously I released her without having stitched her, so it's kind of fun stitching along with some of my fellow guild members and all stitching together on her. And it's really fun to kind of see her come alive after getting to know her so well. Charting her. So my stuff is just all over the place, so please excuse me. I'm having to kind of adjust. So let's see if I can show her to you. So I have been working on Sarah. Sarah is one of my 4 focus pieces for this year. Blacked Sky is another one. And so I have been, no. I have been sort of rotating between Sarah and Blacked Sky on the 13th and one other piece. You better stop it, mister. As soon as I pick her up, he's gonna attack. So here's Sarah, and I can't see what you're seeing. Okay, so I'm stitching her on, excuse me, 40 count weeks putty. with Avera Soie Silks, Soie d'Alger. And I absolutely love it. Oh, now he's gonna attack my hair. Okay. So I really just love her. And I chose this fabric specifically because it has kind of a greenish cast to it, which the original did as well. So you can see I've got the full width on there. I've, dropped down, and I've been working on bringing that border down on the other side. I've started that carnation band that goes across the middle there, and I have been working on the verse, the over one verse. So this last time that I worked on her, I guess last week or the last couple of weeks, I filled in these two flowers up at the top, got those put in. I came around the corner and did the rosebud here in the corner. I did the two little bees and the flowers that go in the red striped vase that matches the other one. And then I brought the verse over, so I finished the top two rows. So let me just, my cat is sitting exactly where I want to be. But I just love her. I love how she's coming together. And so the verse reads, in case you can't read it, amongst 10,000 vain delights, one thing is needful still. And then I think it says, Lord, grant me Mary's portion then, and give me Mary's will. So I've got just the bottom two. I only have partial. But I'm loving it, loving it, loving it. I love those little bees. So this is where I'm at. She is on a fat quarter, and that should fit just fine. I am not quite to the halfway point. I have a little bit of ways to go. But I'm trying to just sort of work my way across and, no, stop it. Work my way across, and I am really enjoying working on her. Someone asked me the other day if the stitching on her is going more quickly because I'm familiar with her. And I wouldn't say it's going more quickly because I am not a super fast stitcher, but it maybe is easier in some ways because because I'm so familiar with the border and the flowers that are in the border and things like that, that I know which parts are repeatable and which parts are not. Because Miss Sarah sometimes decided that, well, we're just gonna put however many stitches in here that we feel like it. Like on that carnation border, it's like every one of those little, loops is a different width. And where she put the stem of her carnation, sometimes there's 7 stitches on one side and 6 on the other, and sometimes there's 7 and 7, and sometimes they're 8 and 5. She just, whatever, close enough. But I do have the Avera Soie Silks. And you may notice I also have DMC in here, so I put, along with the Avera Soies, I put the DMC that I charted for in here as well, just so that I can see the differences, if there are any, or, just for comparison's sake. So, I've been working a good bit on Sarah. And obviously I spent a good bit of time on Blacked Sky, getting that block finished, and now working on the border. I brought in here also, Hannah Tangy, which is another one of my 4 that I'm focusing on. But I don't think I've worked on Hannah since I last showed you her. But I can get her out and show you anyway. Because why not? She's here. So Hannah is by the Scarlet House. She's one of my bucket list pieces that I have wanted to stitch forever. I started her with Christy from Crosshatch Quilts and several other folks on Thanksgiving. And, you know, she has sort of a fall, you know, coloring for the most part, you know, these sort of autumnal colors, but then she's also got this red and green band here with these carnations and then these deer. And so it almost looks like a cross between fall and Christmas, which made it perfect to start for Thanksgiving. And I just love that brick house and the deer and those trees and the moths. So I have been very much enjoying working on Hannah, and I'm anxious to get back to her, but I spent so much time working on Black Sky that she didn't get any love. But here is where I'm at, and I am stitching her on 40 count Buttercream by Lakeside, which was kindly gifted to me by Christy, and I am using the called for MPI. So here is where I'm at. Let me see if I can fold this. Here's where I'm at. So I've basically finished page 1, which was my goal. The only exception is there are some specialty stitches in these flowers that I just kind of figured I'd do all at one time. But I've got that over 1 verse. This moth, which is amazing. It's so pretty. I have a really good close-up picture of it on my blog in my show notes for my last video, 102, if you want to see it with better color. So, and I just got a tiny start on the deer, but I just love it. In fact, my thread is like hanging in the back here for my deer, so I can just keep on going with him. I love it. I love everything about this piece. And it is, you know, I talk about this a lot, but it is a prime example, and so is Black Sky, actually. It's a prime example of how much I enjoy stitching on a piece when I'm doing it with the called for threads and the called for silks, and I'm not substituting. There's nothing at all wrong with substituting, and sometimes, you know, I may choose to substitute because I want a different look or a different feel, whatever. I mean, I'm the one that's completely converting Dutch Beauty to dark colors to make it more gothic, but there is something to be said for me saving a new start just so that I can do it with the fabric and the fibers that I want to use. And I could have done this in DMC and it would have probably been beautiful. And I could have done it on a different fabric and it probably would have been beautiful. But I have waited so long to stitch this piece. And like I said, it's one of my bucket list pieces. So giving it, you know, making it super special by stitching it with the silks and on the Lakeside linen and on 40 count, which is my sweet spot. There's something to be said for that. And I would rather hold off on starting new things until I can start them the way that I want to, rather than, you know, just jumping in and throwing together some stuff that I have on hand. You know, so, and plus I'm not all that into new starts anyway. So when I have one, I want it to be special. So all of that to say, I have done no stitching on Hannah Tangy since the last time you saw her, and so she's still in the same state, but I'm showing her to you anyway. Whatever. So she will go back in her bag, and I'm hoping that I can spend some time with her soon. I would really like to. All right, and then the last thing that I worked on, so I mentioned last time that I have some girlfriends that I get together with every so often to Zoom, and it has been so much fun because we are widely dispersed across the US, and I have not been able to see them in person in many years. So having the opportunity to stitch and visit with them every so often is so much fun. And so several of them are Shadoline stitchers. And so I kind of had this idea in my head that I talked about last time, that since, you know, we get together and stitch, we're trying to do it once a month. But since we do that, I kind of thought it would be fun to have one piece that I just work on every time I stitch with them. So I decided to get out my Egypt Garden chatelaine, and I didn't even have it to show you last time because I hadn't totally fully formed the idea, but I did in fact get it out, and I did in fact stitch on it while I was visiting with them, and I was so happy to have it back out. But I will admit, it's been so long since I had this piece out that it took me a little while to figure out where I was and figure out where I needed to be. That's the problem with not picking up something for a very long time. But it's in my special Egypt bag that Miss Emily made for me and sent for my birthday a few years ago. And it was perfect timing because I had decided to start Egypt Garden on my birthday, which I don't think she knew, but a fun coincidence. I don't think that I have a photo of the whole piece. I just have my chart in here. So I will have to insert a photo here. Of what the whole thing looks like. And if you are unfamiliar with Shadoline Designs, Martina, who sadly has passed away, is a German designer, and she sort of specialized in doing these mandalas where all four sides were the same, of different gardens, different themes, and their photos of them do not do them justice, period. That's all there is to it. But they are typically done in silks with petite treasure braid, which is metallic, with delica beads with Swarovski crystals, so they shimmer and shine and sparkle, and they're just amazing. So these are some of the threads. This one does have a good amount of DMC in it too, along with the silks. There's some of that treasure braid. silk, 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 silk. And so pretty. They just, seriously, I mean, you have to see one in person to get the full extent of it. I've completed 2 Shadolines, and it's probably been a couple years since I finished the King's Vegetable Garden, which was based on the gardens at Versailles. So here is where I'm at on Egypt Garden, and Ted's helping. So because they are symmetrical on all 4 sides for the most part, I always put a little arrow. It doesn't really look like an arrow, but trust me, it is an arrow. I always put an arrow to tell me which way is up, because once you set it down, it's difficult to know. So I am stitching on the center, and this is over 1 with some silk, some DMC, and some petite treasure braid. So those fish are quite sparkly. What are you doing? Okay, so anyway, so the fish are quite sparkly, and so I worked on them a little bit and on filling in some more of that pond. The majority of this, actually all of this, is beads, and a lot of this out here is also beads. So the whole center is going to be quite blingy when it's done. So I worked on that a little bit, and I did work on these stems out here a little bit too, and that's about all I got done. And I have this fantastic needle minder that Emily gifted me with as well, that I think came from Mad for Minders. So I was super happy to work on this. I'm working this on 32 count Days Gone by Silk Weaver, but this is old Silk Weaver, like before they changed hands. And I wanted something that looked like sand, and someone else on the Shadoline board, that's how old this is. We were back on the Yuku boards at that time, pre-Facebook. Someone else stitched it on this color fabric, and so I was like, oh yeah, that's what I need. That's what we need. So anyway, so it was fun to work on it that day while we stitched together. We have another stitching date coming up this coming weekend, so I will get a little more stitching in on that, which I'm looking forward to. So as far as plans go, like I said, I'm gonna continue working on that bottom border of Blackened Sky, probably for the remainder of the week, and then I will probably pick Sarah back up and work on her. Unless the temptation to work on Hannah Tangy gets too much. Now that I've seen her again, kind of want to work on Hannah, but we'll see. And then this weekend I will do an afternoon on Egypt Garden. So those are my plans. We'll see how things go. Okay, so books. So when last we met, I had just finished reading A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. And that series is a reread for me in anticipation of the new book that just came out. Plus, I have also been purchasing the hardbacks because I wanted the original covers, because they have sadly changed the cover style. with the new book. So I've been hunting down and purchasing the hardbacks and rereading them and thoroughly enjoying them. So I finished A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then the next book in the series arrived not too long ago, A Court of Frost and Starlight. And you can see this is really more of a novella than anything. So, I mean, it's still, it's 229 pages, so it's nothing to sneeze at, but I'm looking forward to rereading this as well, and then hopefully I will have the new book in my hands soonish so I can read it too. So I have this to start next. When I finished A Court of Wings and Ruin, I didn't really have anything that I wanted to pick up, and I was kind of struggling a little bit for what to do. Someone had suggested that because I talked about not being able to go to the library, suggested that I look to see if my library has ebooks that you can check out. So I figured out how to do that, and I decided to check out a book that I had not read before, because you may remember at the beginning of last year, I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley because it was part of the Spectral collection that Ex Libris Fibers was doing along with her yarn club for that year. So she was pairing yarn with books. And the first one was Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. So I read Frankenstein. I think maybe the second book that she chose was by Shirley Jackson, which was The Haunting of Hill House, which was not too long ago made into a Netflix series, I think. But I'd never read any Shirley Jackson, so I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. So The Haunting of Hill House, Shirley Jackson, and this is sort of, I think they classify it as like gothic horror, so it's more, spooky, creepy, less horror-y. But it was really good, and it was not that long. It took me an extraordinarily long amount of time to read it because, with the whole power issue thing, I was a little out of sorts. So it took me longer to read it than it really should have, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I'm definitely going to be reading more by Shirley Jackson. And there were hints, and clues that she gives you throughout the story that I didn't pick up on. And I think it's because I was picking it up and putting it back down and picking it up and putting it back down. And I never really got kind of a long stretch of time to sit and just read. And so that sort of kept me, I think, from picking up on some of these, cues that she gives you. The other thing that I have been reading, I fell prey to an Instagram ad, a sponsored post, for an author, because now that I'm, reading and talking about books, I'm now getting like all of the book ads. And this one just had a photo on it that kind of drew me in. So I was like, okay, what is this? I'll look at it. The photo that was on the ad is not the cover of the book, me just say that. Because when I saw the cover of the book, I was like, really? Anyway, so this is what I read. Allure of the Vampire King by Bella Klaus, which sounds like a made-up name, but whatever. And this cover is ridiculous. I get it. But it's basically a vampire romance, and it's a series. I was like, I'll give it a shot. I'll read this one, see how it is, because it was not requiring any large amount of brain power. And it actually kept my attention. It was pretty good. And it ended on a cliffhanger. So then I was like, well, crap, now I got to read the next one. So I pulled up the next one, which is Captive of the Vampire King. And I actually just finished that right before I started recording this video. So it also ended on a cliffhanger. So now I got to read the freaking third one. And I think there's like 7. How do I do this to myself? But they're pretty good. You know, do with that what you will. So, so that's what I've been reading. Haunting of Hill House, and then the Vampire King books. And so since I finished that, I think I'm gonna go read Frost and Starlight, and then I might read another vampire book before my new Sarah J. Maas book comes with the different cover. So anyway, I think that's all I have to share. I don't know for sure because my cat is laying on my show notes right here. We'll pretend that's it. So, as usual, show notes will be posted on my blog. There's a link to it in the description box, as well as, you know, previous episodes. So if you see me talking about something, or, you know, weren't sure what fabric I used or whatever, I try to put all of that information in the show notes, as well as some close-up photos, etc., so that you get, you know, a better idea than what it looks like on camera. Sometimes the pictures are good, sometimes not so good, but, you know, you get what you get. So, and you may notice that we are back to the usual decor in this room. I had my wedding quilt up from Christmas on, so I typically keep it up through Valentine's Day, and with everything that went on in February, it just never got taken down. So this weekend we put everything back, so the swords are back and the flowers are back, and the kimono quilt that I made is back, and all the stuff's back out on the table. So feels like the house is back to its normal self. So I think we are too. And Ramsey's poor little shaved arm, where they had to, you know, do the IV and do his blood work, his fur is starting to grow back, so that's good. And everybody seems to be doing well, which is a good thing. So I think that's it for me. I will just be stitching and reading and trying to stay out of trouble. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your subscribes and your likes and your comments and all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. And you can find me on Instagram as Cozyegg, really all of the places. And as I said, there's a link to my blog in the description box, but it's basically CozyEggDesigns.com. And then you can go to my Cozyegg blog from there. You can go to my Cozy Style blog, which is, you know, books and nail polish and, you know, lifestyle stuff. Or you can go to my Cozy Life blog, which is essential oils and all that good stuff. My Cozyegg Designs stuff is there too, where I have my one pattern available. And come December, Sarah Ann Bantam will be there as well. So keep an eye out if you're interested in her. Okay, that's it. 1 hour, 33 seconds. Thanks so much, guys. Happy stitching. Bye.